Wilt u gaan staan? U kunt wel praten.
Welcome, Ms. Rosteius. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on this beautiful day. And I hereby open this academic ceremony in which Katharina Rosteius will defend the academic thesis entitled To the Roots: Green Care Farms as Long-Term Care Settings for People Living with Dementia. Before we go to the opposition and defense of your thesis, I would like to ask you to present your major findings in a brief presentation of about 15 minutes to the audience. Please, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear highly esteemed opponents, gewaardeerde collega's, liebe Freunde und liebe Familie. In the next 15 minutes, I would like to take you on a journey throughout my dissertation with the title, To the Roots: Green Care Farms as Long-Term Care Setting for People Living with Dementia. For the start, I would like to invite you to look at your two neighbors left and the two neighbors right of you. Maybe smile and form a little group of 5. Statistically, from our generation, when reaching the age of 85, every 5th person is expected to get dementia. That means that of your little group, 1 will get dementia. And if it's not one of your neighbors, it's likely to be yourself. Dementia describes an incurable decline in brain function. It affects people's cognition, emotions, behavior, and physical functioning. With this, dementia is one of the most urgent health challenges of our time. It not only burdens those diagnosed, but also their families and the wider care system, as people living with dementia require so much support to navigate daily life. For informal and in later stages also formal caregivers, caring for a person with dementia can be challenging, as they have to empathize with the person and dive into their very own reality, while similarly providing physical, cognitive, and emotional support. When this care cannot be provided at home anymore, a move into a nursing home is often inevitable. A nursing home consists of a physical, a social, and an organizational environment. The physical environment describes the built environment, such as the layout of buildings or furniture. The social environment describes the network of people present and all interactions between them. The organizational environment includes the structure of the organization as well as its processes. Together, the physical, the social, and the organizational environment define how care is delivered at a nursing home and how the daily life of residents looks. In the last decades, a culture change towards the psychosocial aspects of care can be observed, and new forms of long-term care developed. Pioneering in the Netherlands, a care setting has gained international attention, so-called green care farms. Green care farms have developed as a unique example of 24-hour care for people with dementia. Their most obvious feature is their radically different physical environment, which includes gardens, nature, and animals. As in other small-scale home-like care environments, the social environment revolves around a communal household to which residents actively contribute. Activities stem from daily tasks on the farm and in the household. The organizational environment is often characterized by little hierarchies and a strong care vision, as many green care farms developed from small initiatives on agricultural farms. Until now, green care farms are still a niche care concept, and knowledge on how they work and what their effects are is scarce. First results are promising. For example, there are first indications that residents are more active and spend more time outside than in regular nursing homes. Also for staff, the care provision in this radically different environment could result in a different work experience. Recognizing the potential of the care environment, this dissertation aimed to advance the knowledge on green care farms. We formulated two objectives. First, to gain a better understanding of the concept of green care farms, and second, to understand what living and working in this environment means for residents and for staff. To answer these aims, we did several studies. We started off with explorative studies using ethnography. For this, I moved into a green care farm for 2 months. In total, I spent 31 days doing participatory observations there, did day and night shifts in the 3 groups, participated in birthday celebrations, summer parties, and funerals. I had 24 interviews, as well as countless informal conversations to grasp the thoughts of residents, staff, families, volunteers in the moment of experiencing something. Afterwards, we did the same at a comparison location. For this, we went to a regular nursing home in transition. They moved from an old building into a renovated farm building. Each half year after the move, we did participatory observations and also interviewed those involved in the nursing home. Next, we aim to complement our observations and gain a more quantitative insight into how residents spend their day. We did this with ecological momentary assessments. We randomly observed residents 36 times throughout their day. At randomly selected minutes, we noted where the currently observed resident was and what he did. We did this with 151 residents at 4 green care farms. This summed up to a total of 5,436 observations, noticing each time if a resident was inside or outside, in which place precisely, and in which activity they were engaged in. Lastly, we wanted to grasp what working on a green care farm means for staff in comparison to working in a regular nursing home. We distributed a survey with questions about the work environment, the health and well-being, and their expected future work performance to green care farms and to regular nursing homes. In total, 642 staff members participated. Generally, we observed that green care farms have a very rich environment, rich in opportunities to be active, for example with animals or plants, or by helping with tasks such as cooking or folding laundry, but also rich in natural stimulation of the senses. Residents can touch animals, taste vegetables from the garden, or smell how the next meal is prepared in the kitchen. It seems as if in every corner of the environment there is something to explore. And we see this in the daily life of residents. They are actively engaged with an activity during 86% of the wake time of the day. In hours, this means that from 12 hours, they are actively engaged in activity for 10.5 hours. They spend 10% of their day outside, which is around 1 hour and 15 minutes. Furthermore, we found out that the natural elements are a strong motivator for those residents who like gardens and animals. For some, the fact that the goats need to be fed is the only reason for getting up in the morning. Others really enjoy helping their caregiver with a heavy wheelbarrow. Here, the care relationship can be turned around. They are someone and they are also important. This brings us to the staff. The care environment also influences those who work there. This dissertation showed that staff on care farms, compared to regular nursing homes, perceive their work environment as more pleasant than staff in green care farms. In green care farms, perceive their work environment better than in regular nursing homes. For example, they perceive more resources that help them in their daily work and a better team climate. Also, they report better well-being, such as better vitality and a better overall work satisfaction. And all this they feel regardless of similar perceived job demands as those working in regular nursing homes. So they feel the same demands, but still have better outcomes. Surprisingly, both groups reported similar levels of being able to sustainably perform well in their jobs in the future. This provides interesting starting points for further research. Also, we learned that staff has a strong role in using the opportunities of the environment. They are the ones who need to see the possibilities for activity and who structure the daily life together with residents. If staff is not on board, if they have no affinity to nature, the opportunities might go by unused. This shows that it's not the physical environment alone. Also, the organizational and social environment play a fair share in the daily life of residents. We found out that on green care farms, these three environments are highly intertwined and interrelated. Each environment elevates the other, and without the others, it would fail to reach its full potential. In other words, we cannot put a horse or some chicken in the garden and expect the entire daily life of residents to be different. We have to adjust the entire daily processes. Going to the animals is a normal part of daily life, and we have to see if staff likes to clean the stables, so they actually go there with residents. From practice, we heard that quite some nursing homes seem to struggle with this. They implemented animals in gardens, but struggled to see real changes in the daily life of residents. Therefore, the core of this dissertation was the exploration of the mechanisms of green care farms. To be able to help others, we wanted to move away from the element, the what works on green care farms, such as a garden or a chicken, but see how green care farms work. A mechanism describes how something works. So, as an example, we take our way to work. So, reaching our office is the outcome, and we take our bike. So the bike is the what, and transporting us is the mechanism. And now we get to the point. The elements triggering it are replaceable. Instead of a bike, we could also take a car, a bus, or even walk, as our legs also transport us. We would still trigger the same mechanism and reach the same outcome. And we wanted to do the same for green care farms. We did not want to focus on the elements, but see how they work. We identified 6 mechanisms of the green environment. With its physical, social, and organizational features, it promotes engagement in purposeful activities tailored to the individual. It stimulates the senses. It creates a community, promotes freedom and autonomy in a responsible way, and integrates the vision in all actions and continuously transform to put the vision into practice. Let me show you an example situation to make this more tangible. Here, we see 2 times that people are doing activities together with others. The 2 residents in the left picture are watering pigs, and on the right, 2 residents and a staff member are baking a cake. In both situations, multiple mechanisms are triggered that are promoting engagement in purposeful activities, stimulating the senses, creating a community, promoting freedom and autonomy in a responsible way, and maybe a bit more abstract, integrating the vision into all actions. Importantly, these mechanisms are triggered in both situations, but with entirely different means. They are outside, they are inside, they are doing something only for others, and the others will hopefully get a piece from the cake themselves. Here, it's only residents, and they are together with a staff member. Over the past 4 years, I've heard countless times that we cannot do this because our nursing home looks different. That on green care farms, they have the animals. They have better residents. They have the nice gardens. However, exploring these mechanisms raises the questions if it's really about the gardens. And yes, inarguably, nature and animals are a natural trigger for people to act. Walking past a beautiful flower triggers us to smell it, and when meeting a friendly dog, few people can resist petting him. And before we know it, we engage in a chat with the dog owner. So, nature and animals are natural activators and connectors. But I do understand that implementing nature and animals is not possible in every environment. And in my opinion, it shouldn't be done in every environment. Some people, and I mean residents and staff, might be afraid. Some have allergies, and also for animals, not all environments are suitable to live in. Our results indicate that it's not about the flowers and animals. There are other ways to activate residents. There are other ways to form a community, and there are other ways to make the work environment more pleasant for staff. Innovation often starts in niches, but ideas that work will not stay in niches. The current challenges we face in the care sector imply that politics and organizations look for new ways to organize care. And certainly each nursing home looks different. And it's not possible to copy and paste. But sometimes we can use what is there, such as a kitchen. We need to be creative, and looking at mechanisms can provide some direction. In the end, nursing homes are places in the heart of cities, of villages, of quarters. Green care farms show how they can be turned into a new home for people and remind other nursing homes that in the word nursing home is also the word home. Nursing homes can be places where residents, families, and staff like to spend time. Places that are a welcoming place, even for the wider neighborhood. Green care farms have shown us that this is possible, and I hope that our research helps to push this knowledge into the sector. And who knows, maybe we will have more places where the people in this room, who statistically will get dementia, will look forward to live. I will give the word back to the pro-rector.
Thank you, Ms. Rosteius, for this very clear and nicely illustrated overview of your work. Your supervisory team has selected a team of experts to judge the quality of your thesis. All of them were very positive, and that's why you're here now to defend your work. So we would like to see whether you can defend your work in an academic fashion, and that's why I start the opposition now. Opposition will be opened by Professor De Vught. Professor De Vught. She is Professor of Psychosocial Innovations in Dementia at the Maastricht University and was the chair of the assessment committee of the thesis. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. Congratulations on, very interesting work. Also congratulations to your supervisory team. and a very beautifully coherent and highly relevant thesis, I would say. And you ended with it, but I start with it. I think it raises a question that many of us think about from time to time. What would a pleasant place to live look like when living at home is no longer an option? And a green care farm certainly became an appealing alternative while reading your thesis, especially when it looks as green, as colorful as the cover of your thesis. And well, I thought I noticed a subtle preference for cats over dogs, but now I'm not so sure anymore because you mentioned the dog example in your presentation, so I'm doubting now. But let's now move to the serious part of your defense. I will start with your primary research questions. You phrased them in the introduction chapter. And well, one of the research questions is to understand how residents and staff of green care farms use the green care environment. And I noticed that this formulation omits an important third key actor in this care triad, that of the family member or informal caregiver. Well, it's always not so nice to ask about why didn't you do that, but well, I just want to ask you to elaborate a bit more on why you chose not to explicitly include the perspective of the family in your primary research question.
Mm-hmm. Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for your compliments and the question. Yeah, to be honest, in the research plan, we had a section about the families, and we actually did do a questionnaire, which we distributed to the families as well. In the end, if I'm entirely honest, we just didn't have the time to write this. We wrote 7 papers on residents, on the concepts, on staff members, and the data is now used in a future research project, which already started, so I'm very happy.
Good to know. That's good to know.
Yes, so I'm very happy that I didn't make a data grave. However, that we interviewed them. In the 24 interviews on the green care farm and the 42 interviews on the other one, there were also family members, and their views are included as well, just more subtly.
Okay, so it's good to know that you did find the perspective interesting, and you have even more data than it's already in your thesis that deserves more exploration. But maybe then going to the chapter 2, where you interviewed these informal caregivers, it was not entirely clear to me whether these interviews focused primarily on their views of the residents' experience, or whether they also reflected in those interviews on their own roles, needs, and experiences within the setting of the care farm. Could you explain that a bit better to me, how you approached it?
Yes. Yeah, the interviews were, of course, centered around the experiences of their family member they brought to the green care farm, and also their own experiences at the green care farm. For example, there was one family member who said that this is a second home for her as well. It was a daughter, and she came from holiday and was asked, how was your holiday? And she felt so welcome at this place that these themes became very, very central in the interviews with the family members. However, chapter 2 was to explore the concept and not the experiences of staff members. So we try to look behind these experiences and see what makes these experiences, and not focus on the outcomes, how they feel. That would be a beautiful new study, actually.
Okay, yeah, so then I was a bit puzzled about the phrasing in your discussion of that chapter. You wrote it on page 50. Residents, their families, and staff members equally seem to benefit from collaboratively doing life. I think that's very nice phrasing and interesting, but also maybe a bit strong phrasing if you relate it to the perspective of the caregiver. So what kind of evidence is there then in your study to support that claim from their perspective?
Well, this, I guess, came from the interviews, that they felt so welcome and they like to spend time there. So in a different study, we actually saw that family members spent more than twice as much time at the green care farm than they spent in traditional nursing homes. And they participated in the daily life. That's what we also saw in the observations, that they were sitting down at the lunch table, for example, had dinner or the lunch with the residents, and by being there, they also did kind of care hours for all the residents who were there. So instead of just going to the room of their family member and having a private chat there, they spent time with all the residents at the table. So this is how our data from different sources, plus the interviews, showed us that this collaboration was really, really important for them, and we actually put this topic into the mechanisms in chapter 3. This is the community building.
Yeah, but were there then any drawbacks in that sense? Because it seems all quite positive. So I also experienced that, in fact, in many of care organizations, not specifically green care farms, are also some tensions exist between family members and care staff, maybe some conflicts on views on care, for example. Did you observe also those kind of situations in your study?
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out. I often get the feedback that I'm very positive about green care farms. Yeah. Could seem like it, but of course this was a big topic, especially communication. So the green care farm was an open place, for example, so residents could also leave the green care farm and go for walks, and this is quite typical for green care farms. And for family members, this was often also, of course, a topic where they were wondering if everything goes well with their family member.
So that mostly focused on the difficulty of autonomy versus safety issue.
Yeah, that's why we also put this as a mechanism. And here we saw that, of course, there were, maybe not conflicts, but it was a topic that they need to have very good communication with the staff, and that the staff also has good oversight over the residents. And maybe also another negative part or part of consideration for green care farms is that it's not for everyone. So here we have residents who have an affinity to nature, and where family members also select this type of nursing home. With
so there is a selection bias in that,
There could be a selection bias, and it could not be the right place for everyone, maybe for people who need a quieter environment.
So I wanted to ask then another question, but I think time is up. So because I think it has some nice implications maybe for other care organizations, but I think we will need to discuss that over drinks. So thank you, and I give the word back to the prorector.
Thank you, Professor De Vught. The opposition will now be continued by Professor Choudhury. He's present online. He's Professor of Environmental Gerontology at the Department of Gerontology at the Simon Fraser University in Canada. Professor Choudhury, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, dear candidate, congratulations on doing an original and important contribution in really advancing our understanding of green care farms. And I appreciate especially your work in connecting the interrelationship between social, physical, and organizational environments, which is very nicely done here in this project. So my question is, one quick question about the green care farm site in terms of scale. So the size of the place, so, I mean, why was this particular one chosen? And then a two-part question. And then do you think the findings could have been different if you were to pick a larger green care farm setting?
Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for the compliments and the question. Your first question, if I got it correctly, the sound is not that good, is about the scale of the green care farm and why I chose this particular one. We didn't choose this green care farm just because of the scale, of course. The first green care farm where I also lived was also part of a larger research project, which was a few years ago already by Bram de Boer. And because we had very good connections, they reached out to us to ask whether we would like to do research there. So for us, especially doing ethnography, where we spend a lot of time in the setting and really immerse in the setting, it was really important to have a site where the management really opens the doors and welcomes the research team. Because if you have a site where they are hesitant and maybe think that they themselves are in transition, they might not as openly share their thoughts. And we really wanted to dive deep and really learn about the experiences. So that was our primary reason. Of course, we also checked the hard facts like nature and animals present, a communal household, which we also know from other small-scale living facilities. And as this all matched, we did the research there. Your second question was if we chose a larger green care farm, whether the results might be different. Could definitely be different. I still don't have a perfect definition what a green care farm is, and doing it on a different site, smaller site, larger site, but also in an entirely different nursing home environment, for example in a city, or the small-scale nursing homes we know from Germany could yield entirely different results. So we really explored this setting, and of course in next steps we can try to draw conclusions from this setting. But that's qualitative research, that's ethnography, that you really find results for this one setting.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I think this raises also the research question for future research direction about comparing the size of the setting, whether that has any impact on the outcomes. Okay, I'll move on to the question about, I'm wondering what your thoughts are, or really from your observations, regarding the impact of the setting green care farm for people living in different stages of dementia. So were there people in the setting that had more advanced stages in dementia, and did you observe anything regarding versus moderate to advanced stages of dementia, they're having any varying impact in their engagement and their quality of life outcomes?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, as every person with dementia advances in the disease until they ultimately, of course, die. So it's really important to evaluate settings also for really every stage of dementia. And I got the question a lot whether the people are better, careful with this word, at green care farms. But of course, there are also people in a wheelchair, and of course they can die there. So you have every stage of dementia there. And I think especially, or maybe for all groups, but for people with advanced dementia, the setting can be really wonderful, because as you advance in the dementia, you kind of retract more into your inner world. The present moment becomes more important, and emotions, feelings, and how you feel in this particular moment is really, really important. And for that, the environment promotes so many possibilities. So I had, for example, I saw that a horse came in to a resident who was almost very bad already, and he died a week later. Or they put the little dog on the bed, and he was really happy. So they could still stimulate the senses of this person and still make a pleasant moment of it. So it's really, really important to look at this stage also, and it's not only people who are very fit there.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll just quickly mention that I think there's interesting potential of linking the green care farm setting for advanced stage dementia with some of the other palliative care, hospice care settings where there's a lot of importance on natural context, right? Yeah, okay. So let me ask you one more question. In chapter 2, you have the substantive themes, 4 themes. And then chapter 3, you have 6 mechanisms. And they talk about the what and how, which is very important to make the distinction, what and how. But can you, in my assessment, I thought there was kind of quite a bit of overlap between the mechanisms and the themes. So can you comment on that, that if you were to look at each of the themes, and if you take one theme and then look at the mechanisms, do you think there's a way to dive deeper into how the mechanisms are relevant to each of the themes in a variable way? Like all themes are not related to all 6 mechanisms, right? So can you comment on that particular aspect of how the themes and the mechanisms are related with each other?
Can you answer the question briefly, please?
I try to briefly answer it. Well, we have the mechanisms in chapter 3, and what we see is to bring a mechanism to life, we need to trigger the mechanism with the physical, the social, and the organizational environment. So actually chapter 2 shows us how we can trigger these mechanisms with parts from the physical, parts the social, and part the organizational. So actually they are one story, these two studies. And then maybe the outcomes is the last one. I hope that was enough, sorry.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Professor Chaudhuri. The opposition will be continued by Dr. De Bruin. Dr. De Bruin is Professor of Good Living with Dementia at the University of Applied Sciences, Windesheim in Zwolle. Go ahead.
Thank you. Dear candidate, first of all, I would like to congratulate you with your very interesting and highly relevant dissertation. What I particularly liked is the different research designs that you use, the different methods, and that you really put a lot of effort in really trying to understand the lived reality of people with dementia living on a care farm. And as you know, this topic really captures my interest as well. And also I find it really important to see how the environment can shape your daily life and your well-being. And while I was preparing questions for your defense, actually my environment turned greener and greener. I was redecorating my garden. And this new green environment really inspired me to formulate some questions. So I'm looking forward to discussing some aspects of your PhD work with you. And I would like to start with the title of your PhD thesis, which is called To the Roots. And that suggests a deep and perhaps a foundational exploration of what green care farms are and what they can mean for long-term dementia care. But your aims, your overarching aims, are relatively modest. You say to gain a better understanding, you want to explore how residents and staff use the care environment. And you also said that the current knowledge base was actually, you used the term first indications. So what I would like to ask to you is whether the framing fully reflects the state of the current literature. And I have two questions actually. The first one is, why did you choose the title To the Roots? And secondly, how do you see your work in relation to what is already known?
Dear esteemed opponent, thank you very much for your compliments and the question. Your first question is why I chose the title To the Roots. Well, it has a double meaning, if not three, actually, of course. The first one is that it's really about the foundational work we're doing on green care farms, how they work, and not just looking at their outcomes, but really seeing how they function. So that's the roots of a plant. Of course, they start growing. Number two is, I think you said it even in your presentation, how calming nature is, and that really when you work at the roots in the soil, what this does for people. And the third one is maybe a little more abstract. I often get the question whether green care farms are extremely innovative care settings. I actually don't think so. They go back to the roots. Their core vision is to care again how care was delivered in a family, maybe at an agricultural farm or something. So really doing this life together with the old people, with the children who are also there. So it's not innovative, in my opinion, a very strong opinion, but it's back to the roots, how we're used to do it. And your second question, if I got it correctly, was how our knowledge relates to the knowledge that was already there. Of course, know that you did phenomenal research on daycare green care farms, also for people living with dementia. But apart from this, we see that there was really studies only with first indications. And Bram de Boer is, of course, another important researcher here. There is some research from Norway, but no one really looked at green care farms as replacement for a long-term care home, so with 24-hour care, to see how they function in comparison to or green care farms function in comparison to the traditional care homes. So here we only have first indications, and of course about green care in general, and also for other groups, other types of residents, maybe with mental illnesses or children or whoever, there is a lot of research. But for people with dementia, not that much.
No. No, thank you, and thank you for explaining. The reason I'm also asking is that, as you know, I work at University of Applied Sciences, and I'm in contact, work closely with students and lecturers from different research programs. And I very often hear that students say, I don't want to do an internship in long-term care or in a dementia care facility, and particularly not in a care farm, because I think they are not professionalized and there are only first indications that it will be effective for people working with or living with dementia. So just a very quick answer, like, do you think that we have moved beyond the early indications?
Very interesting observation you make, or experience. I never heard this before. I think we didn't move beyond the first indications, so my dissertation is also maybe a bit of the soil. We put a bit more soil there, but it still was an exploration. It were first studies, and on this more research on green care farms has to build up. Yeah, that's a quick answer.
All right, then I move to chapter 6, if that's okay. And in that chapter, you describe a study on nursing staff outcomes and the work environment characteristics of care farms. And you included 10 green care farms and 21 regular nursing homes. And you mentioned some of the inclusion criteria for green care farms and nursing homes. And you use factors like an archetypical home-like atmosphere, activities determined collaboratively by staff and residents, the absence of strict hierarchies. Could you explain how you operationalized and verified these perhaps somewhat subjective criteria? Can you say a little bit about that?
Yes, very good question. Maybe an anecdote on this. We asked, in some green care farms, we asked family members and staff what innovation of what an innovative care environment is. What they said is it's about the atmosphere, the social life, the feeling welcome. So it is very subjective. How we came to selecting these is that we did internet search. There is a database in the Netherlands where almost all green care farms are listed. Then we came to a list, and then we contacted all the green care farms. Those who responded, I did an interview with. Looked at photos of them on the website, some I also visited, and then I did an interview for 1 hour where I asked that they, as precisely as possible, describe their daily life. And we came to these 10 green care farms, some we know very well. So yeah, that was a combination of pictures of interviews.
All right. Yeah. Then I think I'm seeing the prorector looking at me, so I have to to stop with asking my questions. I'm looking forward to discuss this with you further on a different occasion, and I give now the word back to the Mr. Prorector.
Thank you, Dr. De Bruin. I have to be a little bit strict, I'm afraid, because of the time. Opposition is now continued by Professor Swinnen. She is Professor of Aging Studies at the Maastricht University. Professor Swinnen.
Thank you. Dear candidates, congratulations on your PhD thesis. I join the praise of my colleagues, of course. I was in particular impressed by the range of methods used in the various articles, with ethnographic fieldwork involving the various green care farm stakeholders being particularly interesting. But I'm here to ask some critical questions. I prepared a few. I will start with a question about informed consent. A growing number of scholars, for example, Barbara Pieta and Francesco Diodati, argue that mainstream ethical practices of informed consent are inherently ableist because they are based on assumptions about cognitive capacity, autonomy, and communication that systematically exclude or disadvantage people living with cognitive, intellectual, or communicative disabilities, including people living with dementia. For example, practices of consent or mainstream practice of consent ignore the gradient and fluent nature of cognitive capacity, especially in conditions such as dementia where abilities may fluctuate, and privilege certain forms of expression and understanding over others. Therefore, disability and critical dementia scholars affirm that every person has the potential to participate in decision-making, even if it looks different from the prevailing norm, and propose an alternative approach to consent based on supported decision making as opposed to substituted or proxy decision making, process-based consent, relational autonomy, and the embodied and effective nature of consent. And so with this in mind, could you think more critically about the practices of informed consent in your research project?
Yes, dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for your compliments and the question. Consent is very, very important for people when researching people with dementia, as we cannot know how the cognitive abilities still are. So we actually took a 2 or maybe 3-step approach to gain consent. Number 1 is to inform the family members very well about the research. For example, we did information evenings at the facilities where we told everything about the research. Of course, residents were also invited, and we had some residents actually participating, which was really beautiful. So first we gained the consent of the family members, and here they, of course, could already say, I think that the person would like to participate in the study or not, their family member. But maybe what's more important, what's in the context, what you said, is assent. And what I did at the Green Care Farms is I was there, I was present in the groups quite a lot of times, for example, 3 weeks in one group. I got to know the residents very well and the staff members. And when I wanted to interview a resident, I asked a staff member whether this person can approach the resident first to ask the resident if he or she would like to have a chat with me, if it would be okay if I asked some questions, so that a known face approached the resident and not me as maybe still external person came. And when the resident then consented that it would be nice, we usually went to a very quiet environment, for example, the private room of the resident with the coffee. And I, of course, withdrew if the resident showed any signs of discomfort or didn't like what was going on, but that never happened. So most residents actually really enjoyed having some one-on-one time with me and talking about their life and what happened. So what we did was matching the consent, the formal proxy consent, with assent in the moment of experiencing it.
And how did that go, that assent in the moment during your observations, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you're just present in the group.
Yeah, of course. Here, I mostly was present during the processes of daily life, what was going on, where a large group was present, for example, in the kitchen or in the living room, or was taking a walk. So here, residents usually didn't even notice me particularly because they had a lot of people, volunteers there, a lot of staff members there, so me as a researcher was not like a threat for them. I also participated, of course, in more intimate moments, which were, for example, care moments. And here I really asked the staff member also if it's okay if I join, and asked the resident if it's okay if I joined. And some residents here also said no, so they were able to do this. And I asked the staff members before where I could come join. So there were residents where they already knew, okay, this person doesn't like it when there are too many people or too much noise. So there, of course, I didn't even join the activity. No.
Yes. I have a follow-up question. You have committed to including voices of the residents in your research data. And in your general discussion, you address that you could have used methods other than the traditional interview, such as photo voice and walking interviews, to go around the limitations that people who are largely post-verbal are faced with. And I'm actually really curious, why you think participant observation with its thick description as part of your ethnography is insufficient as a method to capture the experiences of the residents with whom you spend so much time.
I wouldn't label it as insufficient. That was primarily for the interviews, actually. So during the interviews, I had a very, very nice time with the residents, chatting about the pictures on the walls and their family and everything. So, but in the end we realized that this was not enough to answer our research questions. So luckily we had the observations where you learn a lot about how they experience daily life. They have chats with me as researcher, but also staff members, other residents. There you hear a lot, but still, if I wouldn't do the interviews, or I would have to replace the interviews, I would do, for example, walking interviews, just to have some more one-on-one time with the residents. Because when you observe a large group of people and then someone is cooking there and they are playing a game, you don't have this, you can of course take this one-on-one time, but often what I more looked at was these daily processes. So if I now would do it again, I would do walking interviews with the residents instead of the traditional interviews.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess my time is up. Yes, okay.
It's a very brief question and a very brief answer.
Well, yes, then maybe very briefly. There's a lot of emphasis in the thesis on activity and social participation. So what about the role of passivity and solitude in good care practices? Because after all, also able-minded people don't want to be active and social all the time.
Could you repeat the two words you said?
Yes, the activity and social participation versus passivity and solitude.
Oh yeah, that's actually very, very interesting. We saw that the green care farms offered possibility for activity and pushed activity, but because the space was so large, it also gave people the possibility to withdraw from moments where they experienced too many talks, too much input, maybe too much stimulation. So we focused on activity as this is, from research, one of the most important factors to keep people fit cognitively and physically. But we also wrote this down in chapter 3, I think, or 2. That is an equally important part, of course, to have the time for yourself and to withdraw and think and reflect. So it is, of course, included in there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Srennen. Your position will be continued by Dr. Willemse. Dr. Willemse is CEO of the care farm De Reigershoeve in Heemskerk, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, I want to compliment you, of course, also on your beautiful work, and I will especially also want to thank you and your team for the way you conduct your research with your warm and open attitude towards our staff and residents, so thank you for that. And I would like to use a few minutes to discuss a topic in chapter 6 as well. You know, that's where my heart is, to be a good employer for the staff as well, because I think that's the way we can organize good quality care. So, you have a remarkable finding because you don't find anything on sustainable performance. While the figure on page 160 of your thesis shows the hypothesis that you had, so a better work environment, better staff vitality, recovery, and so on, and then sustainable performance, but no. And in your discussion, you only state that you think maybe then employee sustainability is maybe also related to other things that you didn't measure. But because it's a relatively new research area, I was thinking maybe it's important to reflect on the operationalization and the measure you used, but you didn't. So I was wondering, how do you look back at the measure used, first of all?
Yes, dear esteemed opponent, thank you very much for the compliments and the question. Very important point you are raising. We were also in the team and with several managers of green care farms discussing this point that we found, that we see a healthier work environment and better staff outcomes, but still staff in green care farm and in traditional nursing homes don't think that they will perform better, longer than the one in the green care farms compared to the traditional nursing homes. This research area is quite new, the model is quite new, and it could of course be that there is a measure that is not yet researched with this model or with this questionnaire that influences this sustainable performance. At the same time, we also heard back from meetings with the Green Care Farm managers that staff reported that they didn't understand the questionnaire, that it seemed as if the questions weren't very clearly formulated, and that because of that, could be that everyone just noted a little better than the mean. So we actually got at 3.8 from 5 points.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you because we're short on time, and I want to ask you a further question because I would like to propose a related concept, because there's also research being done on sustainable employability, it's called. And they define it with 3 components, namely vitality, workability, and employability. And some researchers, for example, use recovery as the operationalization of sustainable employability. So I was wondering, could this also be a definition used in further research in your team or your former team? And if it could be enough to measure vitality, fatigue, and recovery instead of sustainable performance, and then what would that mean for your conclusions?
Your first question was about the sustainable employability, if I got this correctly. Actually, I don't know the term. Of course, you could research other things. However, what we did is use a questionnaire which was validated in another project. We ourselves didn't do correlations between the items, or we did it, but we didn't publish it. So it would be really, really interesting to really measure from which item how much influence you see on the sustainable employability. It could be a different one, but also the performance we saw. And then you could derive from this, maybe put more emphasis on those which are important, which could be vitality, but it could also be something entirely different, which we didn't measure. Actually, the questionnaire was longer than what we reported. What we, for example, did not include was autonomy. And we see on the Green Care farms that we have very autonomous teams who manage their entire household and the care of themselves. So this could also have an influence. And in the end, we don't know enough about it. Would be very nice to continue this with future research.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Willemsen. The opposition will be followed and ended by Professor Hamers. He is Professor of Care for Older Persons at the Maastricht University. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Prorector. Dear candidates, so we first met at an interview for a position of a PhD project. Do you remember? I guess it was 2020. Oh, you do. So, and I remember that your first supervisor, Professor Verbeek, and the team and I myself were very clear in the judgment at that time. And we said Katharina Rosteius, without any doubt, should be appointed as a PhD candidate. However, not on the project you reflected on, but on the project you defended today, actually. And in my opinion, you have proven that our judgment and decision was, and especially the decision of Professor Verbeek to appoint you, was perfectly right. So therefore, I would like to join all the support and support all the compliments made by the other opponents so far. Compliments to you and your supervisory team, because you really have contributed to the knowledge development in the field of care of older persons. I was not involved in your project, not a part of your team, and nevertheless, I also would like to say thank you. Thank you for arranging free tickets for the Kölner Carnival. But these tickets, unfortunately, will not prevent you from answering critical questions during this ceremony. So, however, to return the favor a little bit, I would like to give you the opportunity to choose between three different questions. So I have 1, a methodological question, 2, another methodological question, and 3, a question of conscience. So in Dutch, a gewetensvraag. So, and depending on the length of your answer, well, it will remain to this question, or probably there will be another question. So what would you like, what would you prefer?
I would like to choose the first methodological question, please.
Okay. That's a good one, by the way. It's about rapid ethnography. So my question is about the methodology of a rapid ethnography approach. So I've recently had a discussion with a candidate at a different PhD ceremony about the same methodology, and still I'm not really convinced about the methodology, because that's the reason why I would like to proceed with you today. And I'm struggling with the part rapid in the methodology, because I'm wondering whether is this not a contradiction in itself. So let's say, and I'm really wondering what the impact then is on the reliability or validity of your results, or if you prefer the trustworthiness or credibility. So to illustrate, if I would like to say to you, well, dear candidate, I have done a rapid systematic review, or I have done a rapid randomized controlled trial. So can you imagine what so please reflect me and help me in understanding that I'm wrong when I'm talking about a rapid ethnography.
Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for the compliments and the question. I think when talking about rapid ethnography or research in general, we always have to balance the costs of the research against what we get out of it. And traditional ethnography comes from extended stays in the field, where people move to other cultures and stayed years with people in the rainforests or other cultures in the Himalaya, I think was the first one. And this, with the current funding system, is simply not possible anymore. So there have to be some advances in this or some changes in this. And then rapid ethnography emerged, and there is a huge discussion around it, how deep the findings are and how well you can really evaluate a setting or whatever you want to do. In the end, I think it's important to state that, to reflect on that, and to make the reader know that it was a rapid ethnography. Because if you spend some weeks in the field, it will be different, but if the reader doesn't know it, he or she might think this was a large one, and maybe make other conclusions about it. So it's very important to reflect on this. And at the same time, my feeling is, from my personal experiences, is that I got really deep insights. I spent 2 months at one of the locations, and then again several weeks every 6 months. And because the people did quickly get used to my presence, I think that they were honest. And I spent a lot of time there, and I wrote extended field notes. And of course, this might be different in wintertime or in 2 years, but still this still does give us a glimpse of the life there, and it is a starting point, and then maybe you refine your questions and can do another rapid.
Yeah, but would you then not say, well, probably we should look at the original methodology and should say, well, we should not talk about rapid ethnography, but we should change the idea of ethnography. I'm just thinking aloud. Because I guess that the original idea of researchers, there was the idea behind the fact that they went into other in clinical practice or whatever for a very long time.
In the end, I'm of the strong opinion that you learn best if you are somewhere. I learned Dutch at the green care farms, for example, a whole language, which I would never have learned this well without being there. I saw how they work, and I still talk about this every day, how the different work practices are. And if you don't stay there, you will have a different picture if you do a different methodology. So we chose this methodology deliberately to answer our research questions. And ethnography is still a very, very nice method to answer certain questions.
So I'm not doubting the method of ethnography, it's just the rapid part of it. And I think in the discussion, when I understood you correctly, well, you said, well, probably the original idea of staying so long time in some place is not efficient, but not only efficient, but it's also not giving new or other information and so on than doing it in a quicker way, actually. But my thought was then that we should probably change the idea of the methodology. So not saying it's not ethnography, but why should you put it as rapid ethnography? I'm just thinking aloud. I'm not an expert in the field, but
I think that the presumptions of the methodology still stay the same.
great.
You can briefly finish your answer.
Can I, or do I have to?
Okay, thank you, Professor Hamert. Ms. Rosteius, the time appointed for defending your thesis has passed. The degree committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and the quality of your defense. And I request that you and your company await the result of our deliberations and our return in this room.
Wilt u gaan staan?
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
Long road to the south side. 7 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. All your time, 'cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off. Hit the mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. Even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you've won the battle once you've grown. South side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. 'Cause I'll go the extra mile.
nochmal jede Frage besprochen und ob jeder auch zufrieden war mit der Antwort und so. Ja.
U kunt wel praten.
Ms. Rosteius, the degree committee here present has assessed the quality of your thesis and the quality of your defense. In view of its positive verdict and taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor. Professor Verbeek is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom. I invite your supervisor now to take the floor.
Do you promise to work in accordance with the principles of scientific integrity at all times, to be careful and honest, transparent, independent and responsible?
Yes, I promise.
By the authority vested in us by law and in conformity with the decision of the committee here present, I hereby confer upon you, Katharina Rosteius, the degree of doctor and grant you all rights attached to custom and law. As evidence of this, I now present you with the degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary and the other members of the committee and affixed with the official seal of the university. Zeer geleerde Dr. Rosteius, beste Katharina. Je laatste examen is vandaag succesvol afgelegd. Dit is het moment. Je bent klaar. Voortaan ga je als Dr. Rosteius door het leven. Aan mij de eer om je vandaag als eerste te mogen feliciteren en toespreken, mede namens je co-promotor Bram de Boer. Allereerst wil ik een korte trip down memory lane maken, hoe het allemaal begon. En eerder werd er al naar gerefereerd. Je solliciteerde namelijk eigenlijk op een andere functie. Namelijk een promotieplaats als onderdeel van een landelijk consortium over verhuizen. En je paranimf gaat daar deze week op promoveren aanstaande donderdag. Maar je sprak toen al alleen maar over zorgboerderijen. En we zagen geen match op dat project. We wisten dat er spoedig waarschijnlijk een ander project zou komen als onderdeel van de leerstoel die ik vervulde bij Meandergroep. Maar dat duurde nog even en gelukkig was je bereid hierop te wachten. Op 1 januari 2021 was het dan zover en ben je begonnen aan je promotietraject. Het onderzoek hebben we samen met Meandergroep vormgegeven, waarin de vraag centraal stond: hoe werkt de omgeving nu voor mensen met dementie? In een eerdere studie van je co-promotor Bram de Boer zagen we namelijk dat die bewoners op zorgboerderijen een actiever dagelijks leven hadden, met meer sociale interacties. Echter wisten we niet goed waarom en hoe werkte dat nou? Dat werd jouw opdracht. We startten een eerste studie, een etnografische studie waarbij je op een zorgboerderij ging wonen. Dat was Zorgerf in Putten. Je dompelde jezelf onder in het dagelijks leven. Er was alleen één klein ding. Je sprak geen Nederlands. En de Nederlandse taal sprak je nog niet toen je bij ons begon. En nu is dat in de regio waar Meandergroep werkzaam is niet zo'n probleem. Locatie De Hoeve ligt in Bocholt. En ja, dat dialect klinkt net als Keuls dialect, waar jij lang gewoond hebt en vandaan komt. Maar ja, dat is toch anders dan in Putten. De andere locaties lagen allemaal verspreid over het land. Geen probleem. En dat kenmerkt jou, zei jij. Je zei geen probleem. En via zelfstudie en cursussen ben je begonnen met het Nederlands leren. En binnen 5 maanden hebben we de studie kunnen starten en heb je je de taal eigen gemaakt. En van wie heb je het beste Nederlands geleerd? Dat zijn de mensen met dementie, die toen je huisgenoten waren. En het toont je inzet en je gedrevenheid in het project. In het begin waren er ook wel wat cultuurverschillen tussen Duitsland en Nederland. En met name bijvoorbeeld hoe je kijkt naar een hoogleraar. Je had zeker in het begin de neiging om alles van mijn suggesties en ideeën nogal letterlijk te willen nemen en alles te willen doen. En mensen die mij kennen, dat zijn er soms best veel. En dat je denkt, nou ja, ik probeer gewoon een academische discussie te stimuleren en ideeën op gang te krijgen. En om gedachten te kunnen aanscherpen. Maar ook bijvoorbeeld dat je een boekhoofdstuk hebt geschreven en dat niet met mij deelde, omdat je dacht dat ik dat niet relevant zou vinden. Want hoogleraren zijn toch alleen maar geïnteresseerd in wetenschappelijke publicaties in peer-review tijdschriften met een impact factor. Ook die heb je veel. Gelukkig vonden we al snel een gezamenlijke weg in het traject en kwam dit meer dan goed. Jij deed wat je moest doen, hield je altijd aan je woord, vond alles interessant, super enthousiast. En als team wisten we dat het goed zou komen als jij ergens voor gaat. Je hebt je promotie in exact 4 jaar afgerond en dat is een prestatie om trots op te zijn. Zeker gezien alle omstandigheden als corona dat continu roet in het eten gooide. Ik heb je zien groeien tot een sterke vrouw in de wetenschap, die voor haar verhaal staat en de boodschap haarscherp kan overbrengen. Je hebt je werk op vele verschillende internationale congressen gepresenteerd. Ook al vond je dat spannend, zeker in het begin. Van Seattle tot Lissabon en van dichtbij een huis in Duitsland tot Tampa, Florida. Zo heb je je boodschap van andere vormen van wonen met zorg voor mensen met dementie letterlijk verder gebracht. En het heeft geleid tot verschillende internationale contacten. Onlangs hebben we bijvoorbeeld collega's uit Australië op bezoek gehad die erg geïnteresseerd zijn in het concept, oorspronkelijk geïnspireerd door jouw presentatie op een congres. In je werk als wetenschapper zet je je sterk in om je onderzoek gezamenlijk vorm te geven met ouderen, hun naasten en medewerkers. Je betrekt hen bij de opzet van de vragen in het duiden van resultaten. Bij Meandergroep hebben we samen met een van hun locaties de werkingsmechanismen vertaald naar de praktijk. Je nam deel aan stuurgroep met bestuurders, directie, management, maar ook in werkgroepen met de directe zorg, het verzorgende, facilitair medewerkers, activiteitenbegeleiding. Je bent een kei in het aangaan van relaties met onze partners in het veld. En dit is ontzettend waardevol. Complimenten voor hoe je dat gedaan hebt, waarbij je zelf altijd terugkoppelingen, inspiratiesessies en infosheets hebt vormgegeven. Daarnaast zijn we ook samen uitgenodigd geweest voor de Avond van de Wetenschap, waarin jij als een van de 25 jonge toponderzoekers gedineerd hebt om over je werk te vertellen. Met een grote diversiteit aan tafelgasten, van bankdirecteur tot filosoof. En samen hebben we gediscussieerd. Bovendien ben je een groot dierenliefhebber. Vooral paarden zijn je grote liefde. En dit kwam perfect uit op het zorgerf, waar ze ook paardentherapie deden. En deze liefde kon je ook met verschillende collega's, waaronder je parennimf, op de vakgroep delen. Toen we je ooit vroegen om een stuk te schrijven over een congres waar je geweest was, dat doen we wel vaker, zodat iedereen weet waar het een beetje over gaat en wat belangrijke highlights waren, had ik verwacht dat je iets schreef over de sessie en wat je had geleerd. Maar het was vooral een verslag van hoe de paardenranch en de manege was voorafgaand aan jullie congres, waar jullie nog vakantie hadden gemaakt. En ja, het was wel prachtig om te zien. Wat ik ontzettend mooi vind, is dat je je wetenschappelijke inzichten op dit moment direct doorvertaalt in de ontwikkelingen van je eigen zorgboerderij, samen met je partner. Samen met Jan vervul je nu een leiderschapsrol om het concept ook in Duitsland van de grond te krijgen. Je hebt je droom nooit losgelaten en neemt je inzichten uit de wetenschap nu mee in de praktijk om hier verder mee te gaan. Je schrijft aan een boek en jullie hebben een stuk land gekocht waar jullie je droom verder willen vormgeven. En ik vind het heel fijn dat we ook onze wetenschappelijke link kunnen houden om daar verder onderzoek naar te doen. En gezamenlijk te kunnen blijven optrekken in wetenschappelijk onderzoek naar zorgboerderijen voor mensen met dementie. Nogmaals van harte gefeliciteerd met het behalen van je Bul, mede namens Bram. Und ich möchte auch Ihre Familie, Freunde und Jan in diese Glückwünschen einbeziehen. Voor nu, proost.
Highly esteemed Dr. Rosteius. I will switch to English again. So we were Dutch, German, and now English again. It is my honor to congratulate you on behalf of the university and the Board of Deans. I also would like to, of course, congratulate your supervisory team. I would like to congratulate the family, Jan, Papa, Mom, the whole family, and also those that have participated in the work. I saw in your publications that several co-authors appear. Research is never done alone, and I think also your collaborators deserve to be honored. And also, of course, the patients in the care farm. We had a deliberation, of course, about your thesis, your defense, your introduction, and I must say only superlatives went over the floor. And I think I can name some. The thesis is of very high quality. As I could see, it has resulted in several publications already. And what is most important, I think, is that your research has direct practical implications. Your introduction highlighted very nicely the work that you did and your major results, and the defense was great. You were relaxed, at least it seemed so. You were enthusiastic, and you were confident in your answers. You had a deep understanding, you have a deep understanding of the matters that you talk about. You approach your work from a conceptual perspective, and you gave clear answers actually, and had good arguments, clear answers to the questions, and good arguments to support your work. So I understand that you will start your own care farm, and from my side and from the university side, I would like to wish you good luck with that, and I hope that you can implement the knowledge that you have acquired from your research in your work, in your farm. But I also understand that you will continue to do research together with the group here. So that's something that we as a university support highly. So again, congratulations with the work and with the degree that you have just received. Before I close this ceremony, I have a few announcements to make. We will first give Professor Choudhury the chance to congratulate you here in the room. Then we will go to the stairs and make a picture. I would like to invite the family also to join us for that picture. And I would like to ask the audience to go to the rafter for the reception. To leave first, and then while we, let's say, stay here, you can go and have a drink already. So, in having said so, I close this academic ceremony.
Pippa. Das ist witzig. Haben die nicht dabei? Das ist jetzt gut, dass Katharina nie gesehen hat.